it's really, really fun to think of the dark feminine as this uninhibited, raw, energetic, sex heart connected essence of ourselves that, you know,
it's a powerhouse.
It's a powerhouse.
Yeah.
It's creative, it's powerful, it's sexy, it's alive. And it's far from our default good girl, people-pleasing sort of energy that really doesn't serve us. I'm Kimi Inch, and I am most passionate in my whole life about introducing people into what's possible in their lives, especially their erotic lives, in and out of the bedroom.
Hey, I'm Taylor Davis. Welcome to Wildly Satisfied. I hope you enjoy the show. We've come to the last episode. Maybe not the last. I'm sure that eventually we'll be recording this again. I don't know.
I'll be back.
Yes, she'll be back. And I want to really tie this all together because when, you know, our listeners and everybody that's in this, the feminine energy is such a powerful essence. And I think that it gets a lot of miscommunication around it. And one thing I love about you is that when you show different, like, varying degrees of what that can be, and it can be this powerful, in a way, dominating energy, not dominating energy, maybe you can put some words to it that I can't. But I feel like it's the depths and the softness. It's the different versions of what the feminine is. And I want to dive a little bit into what that looks like.
Absolutely. Because, you know, when we're talking about masculine and feminine energy, we're not necessarily talking about gender at all.
No.
And I know some people get sensitive to that language, and you can definitely exchange that. Instead of masculine, you could say active, and instead of feminine, you could say receptivity. So there's ways of playing with language, because I know language is important for people. But ultimately, we're talking about how we create the ability to have different poles and how to create polarity so that there's more vitality and possibility in those places. And the feminine pole is about the receptivity, about being in flow, in creativity, in the invitation, in pleasure. It really moves away from what the masculine pole looks like, which is a lot about structure and foundations and consciousness and awareness. The feminine is almost, in a sense, like the representation of life itself and the changing weather and the changing of the seasons and the changing of the moon. You know, like, it's always changing. It's in flux, it's in flow. And it's always evolving. So when you think about the dark feminine, you get to really play into so many different energies that could be in the dark feminine. Some people immediately consider that to mean, oh, does that mean dominatrix energy? Like, that means I got to just start kicking people in the balls when I walk down the street? Like, what does that mean? And it's like, no, like, that can be like that ball busted dom can be a part of the dark feminine, but also is the sorceress, also is someone with the witchy powers of sorcery, also could be, you know, the like sacred slut or dirty little slut energy. It could also, and that's all about pleasure as well, and just owning our pleasure and craving without any inhibition, our desire for pleasure and for aliveness. Like, that's what being a slut is. It doesn't even have to be necessarily specific to sex. So it's like, I want to be a slut for, like, the fullness of life, you know, like, I want to be penetrated by abundance and wealth and prosperity, not necessarily by a man. So those are sort of the essences of the dark feminine as well. So is the queen. So, you know, and so is this idea of, like, our being in our villain era. It's almost this, like, unapologetic, uninhibited source of energy where we get to really embody all parts of ourselves. Even like the idea of Kali Ma, who is like our killer, but she doesn't kill to be malicious. She does it for love. So the feminine energy is so much attached to this devotion to love and to do things from love at all times. So you can be in your darkness and be so deeply in love essence simultaneously that you get to not just have your heart, but you also get to have your sex at the same time. And when we talk about eroticism, where people get sort of freaked out is like bringing in the essence of their sex outside of the bedroom, because they're like, oh, what would that look like? Like, that sounds inappropriate or risky. And like, how can I bring my sexy parts of myself outside of my relationships and bedroom? And it's like, if you're just keeping it in the bedroom, you're actually keeping it really small. You're actually playing really small, because there's a lot of juice in our Eros energy, which is the life force energy. And if you're able to channel it through your dark feminine essences and be able to have access to it, then you're so much more resourced on whatever shows up in your path.
Yeah.
Like you get to really decide how you navigate life, but you also get to sort of play the creatrix in a way. You get to be the creatrix of your life by saying like, I want to infuse my life with more of this or more of that. So I'm going to show up like this, or I'm going to tap into this energy so that I am inspiring that in the people and lovers around me. So it's really, really fun to think of the dark feminine as this uninhibited, raw, energetic, sex, heart connected essence of ourselves that, you know,
It's a powerhouse.
it's a powerhouse.
Yeah.
It's creative, it's powerful, it's sexy, it's alive, and it's far from our default good girl, people pleasing, you know, sort of energy that really doesn't serve us.
I love this because, you know, I always talk about how feminine energy at its core is creation energy, and creation energy is life. It is life-giving energy. And I don't even just mean from like children. Like the energy that we put out into the world, it's massive and it's chaos and it's sometimes overwhelming to people.
Yeah.
And I love that as we're diving into this and as people are understanding the feminine a bit more, it's not black and white. It's this range of experiences. So while you're talking about dark feminine, dark does not mean you know, this evil energy.
Right.
Just like light feminine is not like, there's actually dark sides to the light feminine as well.
Yeah.
There's shadows to
Absolutely.
that. So interchanging that, I love that there's a range in this, and it's kind of like soft versus strong. They're both strong in a way, but like the softness is more of the light, playing with different words in terms of like the differences.
100%. So like, let's say if you're in the good girl role and, you know, there's this idea of being needy and how people find that to be really unattractive, like with someone who's really, really needy.
Yeah.
So what if you moved away from needy and moved into hungry?
Ooh,
I'm hungry for something.
I love this.
I am like starving for it, actually.
Ooh.
Instead of like, can you give this to me? Like, no, how about like, I'm fucking hungry for this experience. Like, bring it to me.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
that's
claiming.
dark. It's claiming, it's unapologetic. It's like, yeah. And it's our fullness of like, yeah, what we believe we deserve. And it's almost like, it's almost this playful energy. 'Cause it could also be like, I want you if you dare, if you're brave enough to come here, like come and get it, you know? And it doesn't have to be like, you know, this boss babe where, you know, a lot of women are trapped so much in their masculinity that they're disconnected from their feminine essence. Like this is also a huge source of power, huge source of power. And again, we want people to be able to have range. So like if you want to be in your entrepreneurship and you think that that means you need to be and play like a man, then the invitation is like, is that actually true? Or can you be both? Can you have both available to you?
I love that. I feel like it's also, for me, I always look at what's the masculine version versus the feminine version, and being able to see that like this, the dark femme energy, the playing with it, seductive type of energy, where you're just so powerful as you are, is like the male version of, you know, that powerhouse as a man. And so it's like, can you switch from like boss babe, which might not be very good for your nervous system, which is like super masculine, to the dark feminine powerhouse, where it's still powerful, but it's also, there is this strength and softness to it, where it's like, that's actually where we thrive. Can we shift? We're bosses there, but we're doing it in a feminine way versus the masculine version of it. Like, can all the boss babes please come over to the dark feminine side?
Join us.
You will be happy here. Yes, I love this. So good. Because I've noticed myself, like hustling, and you've experienced this too. We've talked a lot about this.
Oh man, yeah.
Being in hustle, being in burnout and stress, it's like those don't work for us.
Yeah.
But can we kind of play with ourselves and come into this energy of like, well, actually, this is where my power lies. In the dark femme.
100%.
And then integrating those sides of you, the light and dark, the softness, the strength, the both parts. So I just love this.
I love it too. And it's interesting, even in my own journey as an entrepreneur, these last 3 years of doing this specific company that I'm doing now. The first couple of years, I did fall into the trap of following the masculine structure of hustle and work hard, and, work always. And there were some good pieces of that, because I think there was an availability to put some structures and foundations in place. But now that has been set, it's like, oh, now I'm going to just be free and play and see what I can invite in. Now that those foundations have been set by my masculine, now it's time for me to do back into my feminine, with the pendulum going back into my feminine energy, and start manifesting and cultivating and creating the success that I desire.
And I feel like too, when you lean into that energy, you actually find success faster and more pleasurable. And it doesn't always make sense to the men in our lives. I'm just going to put that out there.
So true.
They're like, how did this happen? You just had to be like sexy and amazing and have so much fun. Like, what? What's going on?
It's true. It's true.
And I love that. And so I feel like there's the potency in that. There's a potency in that energy that is not always understood by common ways we know things and how things operate.
Totally.
And I want to talk.
It's magic.
It's such magic.
It's magic, and people don't take that shit seriously at all.
No.
Like, what's the secret to your success? Magic.
Sex magic.
Yes, definitely sex magic.
Sex magic. Orgasmic magic is what it is.
Like, that sounds hot.
Yeah.
They're not talking about that in business school. I can tell you that much.
We do here.
Yes.
It's going to be in the feminine business school. We do here.
Oh, good. Thank God. We need it. We need it.
No, I love this, because I feel like the more, and I want to go into this just a little bit, the more you lean into your dark femme, the different sides of you, the range of who you are, and the more you lean into that vulnerability and become more heart-centered, I feel like that's where the magic does unlock.
Right.
And that's when women come into these spaces, and I want you to talk a little bit about this, the potent, powerful, life-changing spaces that come from being around women who are so in their, whether it's their vulnerability, but they have moved into these energies of themselves, where they're like, they are so fully themselves. And then you're like, oh my God, I can be that too.
Inspiring.
It's so inspiring.
Healing. Regenerative.
Yeah.
Like, it is so potent, because while I love the men in the world and the men in my life, being with my sisters and being in that energy, because I usually just feel so incredibly safe in female-led spaces and being with other women in that sense, that it creates the openness in your nervous system to expand and to create and to try things on in an environment where you feel like you're going to be loved and supported every step of the way. Yeah. It's so funny, because when I hold all women's spaces, there might be some intimidation in the beginning and a little timidness and a little like, oh God, like what's going to happen? By the end, people are just wild. They are so fully expressed, and they are in their power, and it is such a sight to behold. And then I'll do these co-ed classes, which are also so powerful and meaningful in so many ways, but very, very slow transition for the women in the room, because immediately when there's masculine energies present, there's a holding back. There's just a default habitual way that we just kind of hold back in the beginning until we start bringing consciousness to it. So when you take that piece out of the equation and you really start to strengthen these muscles of being in your dark feminine and being in the fullness of your power, when you do go back to the default world where the masculine is going to be present in your life, you have that already strengthened within you. And it's such a cool way of moving through this practice, because you're able to really get in the strength training with the support and celebration that we need to have success and to create the openness in our nervous systems that will allow that to take place.
I think too, from what I've experienced with feminine spaces, is there's such an intuitive part. So like if there's nervousness around being around in feminine spaces,
right?
And I had this myself. Yeah. At the very beginning, when I started getting into this work, when I was actually in the feminine space, a lot of the times I would be sharing and I'd be vulnerable, and I thought that I'd be met with something that was not a good reaction, or they would use it against me, or whatever things that I was conditioned into believing. Right. And without me even having to ask, but I do believe in a powerful ask, without me having to ask, the women in the space knew to come up and give me a hug. They're like, can I hug you? Is it okay? And they were able to, because as women coming together, we feel one another and we're like, I know what that's like for you. So being in that space is really powerful. And it's actually, I just want to say this really quick too, is when you are in that space and you normalize it, like what you were talking about, and then you're like wild about it, you're able to bring that out into the rest of the world.
100%.
And I have a perfect example of that is a friend of mine was doing a photo shoot for herself, and it was her and it was her whole company. And she has all these women that are just celebrating one another. And there's 2 guys there because they were like filming part of it. And all the women were like, you're beautiful, you're gorgeous. They were just like hyping each other up.
Yes.
There was hugs and celebrations and everything. And the guys were like, I've never experienced this before. And I just love that feeling of like the feminine space, and then to be able to bring it out into the world in a way that really does heal how we do things, and in such a celebrating way. And so I love the way that, I love that when you do it though, like people step into their wildness and then they're like, I want everything. Give me everything.
Somebody spank me. I want to be tied up. I love this. Like, it is so fun. It's so fun to see that expressed through erotic play, but in a way that has a lot of innocence to it at the same time. Like, there's an innocence and a joy and a pureness about it, in a sense, when I'm seeing these women really embrace those parts of themselves, and they're like, I want to be my sexy sacred slut, and I want to bring an air of innocence to it too, because I want to have all parts of myself available. And it's so cool to see, like, what does that look like? Like, I get to create anything I want, but it doesn't have to be this like 3-dimensional. It gets to be like, 20-dimensional sort of human beings that we actually are, and we get to embrace all of these things.
I feel like it feeds so much of you too, and feeds so much of other parts of your life also, whether it's your business or your partnership.
Yeah.
And I always laugh because there's all this conditioning around like, oh, well, I don't know, your body needs to look a certain way or things like that. And the masculine partners that are in your life are like, I don't care about any of that.
Like, what?
And then when you tap into these parts of yourself and you come out and you're like, I want to be playful, they're like, yes, this is amazing. And it's like, so coming back home to yourself and like integrating all these parts to become whole, where you get to be vulnerable, you get to be sexy, you get to be hungry, you get to be whatever those pieces are that we've talked about in this entire series.
Yeah.
Like, the way that you interact with the world and the amount that you receive because you're in that energy is phenomenal.
Oh yeah. It's so juicy. There's infinite possibility behind it. And it's true, like, yeah, it is so juicy and enlivening for you. But if anyone is lucky enough to be able to interact with those qualities of that evolution, oh my gosh, it is so delicious, especially to the masculine. So delicious because it is their pole. And it usually calls them forward into their brilliance and greatness as well, because most women tend to be more emotionally evolved than a lot of men, and more attuned and all of these things. So we actually set the tone for our emotional relationships and for that sort of vulnerability to exist. And when we are really embraced in it, we will call our male partners forward into stepping into their essence of it. Because I know I've heard so many women say, like, where are the strong men that are conscious but also loving and tender, but also, like the women, a feminine has a very long list of what we desire, because we're just insatiable.
Yes.
Like, we're fucking insatiable. And it's like, embrace it. But that's going to be able to be realized more readily if you're bringing that fullness of you into the relationship that makes your partner say, like, oh, I want to step up to this. This is juicy. Like, so yummy.
I love this. I love this because I always say, because there's an interesting, you always talk about like leader follower dynamic and things like that. And we all want men who lead. It's okay. We can say it. We love that. I recognize that there was some disconnect, and I always say to people now, because it really clicked in, I was like, the feminine sets the standard and the masculine leads from it. To really distinguish to people that it's like, you're leading too. It's just you're setting the standard in a different way. Yeah. And that goes for inside yourself too. Like in what you were talking about, yes, in the relationship, and they're like, oh, I want to play too, and they rise up to that.
Yes.
So it's like, where can you do that for yourself? Where can you set the standard where they can then lead from there?
Yes.
And also, like, in your business, what does that look like? It's your feminine energy inside of yourself needs to set the standard, and then your masculine will move from it, from a freedom perspective, from that type of thing.
Absolutely. And and I love this conversation so much. It's so important. And as we're continuing to discuss the dark feminine and share, I just want the people listening to this to know that it's actually so important, though, to create opportunities where you actually get to be in practice of these things, that you don't just talk about it, but you are about it. Like, you actually have gotten it into your body, you have felt it, you have cried it, you have orgasmed with it, you have like let it really move through you. And that is how we create the change and shifts in our worlds that we crave so deeply. So it's like really being able to be in these spaces and being in the practice of it. That's what creates change.
What are some examples of the practices of it? If you could just list off a couple. You don't have to go like super deep into like the full practice, but like what are some of the things?
Yeah, well, there's going to definitely be a lot of consciousness around being in embodiment practices, and also being in very tantric is saying like, how do we connect to breath, movement, and sound, and always incorporating these elements. So, for example, if a woman is exploring her dark feminine, but maybe there's some clearing that needs to happen around some pain, some fears, some sadness, etc. Like, how about we don't just sit and talk about it and like, oh yeah, I'm really sad when my boyfriend broke up with me and I felt so in love. Like, stop, time out. Let's bring it into the body. What sound in your body wants to be emoted by this feeling of I'm not enough? What does it sound like? Is it a like, oh God? Like, let's get out of this and get back into what's happening here with connection with your sisters and support and love of your sisters, so that you're no longer operating from the head, but from the heart, from the sex, where so much is possible. So the practices are really about like, let's bring it back to the body again. Let's bring it back to the heart. Let's bring it back to our sex. Let's get out of our default zone of our heads and really like help each other embody what we're talking about and bring in the sexy pieces and elements too, so that we know that we have access to all of it.
Oh, I love this.
It's so juicy.
It's so juicy. There's so much more we could talk about.
And we're gonna play with that. We're gonna play with the different archetypes. Like, we're going to play with like actually stepping into what we consider to be our seductress. We're going to step into what actually do we think is our naughty little girl energy. Like, and we're going to play with that. Like, how does your body change? Like, how do you dance when you're that archetype? How do you talk? What do you wear? And when we're going to actually start playing with these essences again, so we can keep widening our container and expanding our range so that we can experience more of life.
Well, and I think it goes back to something you said in an earlier episode of like, you're not just this one person, you're different energies. And the feminine is cyclical. We have seasons, we have different ways of being, even throughout the month.
Right.
And to be able to be like, oh, in these different archetypes and these different energies of my dark femme, or eventually of my light femme, or whatever it is that you want to play in, it's like, how do you move in those different energies? Because you're not going to be the same person every day. And you're going to want to wake up and be like, yeah, that wardrobe is not what I am wearing today. That is not my energy.
Totally.
Let's do a different one. Totally. And so being able to play in those different energies and know how to navigate when your dirty little slut wants to come out in a way that's vulnerable, in your heart, that you're able to, in a healthy way, ask for what you want and play in that energy, or play with your girlfriends, whatever it is. Like, I just love that. I love that.
Me too. It's so fun to be alive. Let's play with that.
Yes. Amazing. Okay, so this was absolutely wonderful. I could talk to you forever. I really could.
I love this. I love talking about this. I never get bored with this.
No, I feel like there's so much, just like there is so much to the dark feminine, just like there's so much to feminine energy, there is so much more we can go into this. So if anyone has questions, there is going to be a form always in the comment or in the description, which you can drop questions. And
Please.
Maybe she'll come back.
I would love to come back.
I'd love to come back. And
don't threaten me with a good time.
And we can do that because I feel like there's just so much more we can expand on, and there's so many different facets of this. So I would like just really quickly for you to talk about And More, because with And More is the brand, Kimi's brand.
Yes.
And unlike, I won't say unlike, but it's such a different experience being in the And More world,
right?
Where it's not just about sex, it's not just about relationships, it's not just about those things, it's about activating your eroticism in all aspects of your life in a way that looks to you. It's very intuitive to you. And so can you just tell our listeners a little bit about what that looks like?
Absolutely. The And More brand was born from this idea that, yes, we are talking about sex and more, and kink and more, and we're talking about relationships and more. And this idea that people that want to tap into the more of their existence and what they're craving and what they're desiring is what we want to give them the opportunity to explore with celebration, with full acceptance and full permission to go big and to leave it all on the playing field. Because when we're able to have a healthy relationship with these parts of ourselves, it does impact all areas of our lives. And for me, in the ultimate is that I want to create a world where we have the freedom to truly be ourselves and truly express what we desire and what we want without shame and without intimidation or without any fear of rejection or retaliation. So for me, this idea is like, how do I help the individual step into the fullness of what's possible so that they can be accessed and in their pleasure? Because ultimately, I know that's going to make for more peace in this world, more pleasure in this world, less war. And on a selfish level, for me, I just want more cool people to hang out with. And I think people who are working on themselves and on their erotic path are the coolest people in the world, because it's an act of rebellion, really, to be willing to step into this sort of life and into this lifestyle of like really being able to be fully in all parts of yourself and to embrace your erotic side as well. So that's what we're doing here, and that's what I get excited about. We want to get people healed, and what's better than healing and also having orgasms at the same time? I mean, I think that's a pretty good trade-off, if you ask me.
Yeah.
So
healing through orgasm.
Yes.
I always say, someone asked me, they're like, what is the answer to world peace? And I was like, more orgasms.
Yes.
Immediately was my first thought. I was like, just more of that.
100%.
Yeah. And then you go into like, I was going to say like Elle Wood, she's like, happy people just don't kill their husbands. And I'm like, exactly. So be happy. Like we have more happiness here.
It's so true. And when we say the orgasm, and not just genitally focused orgasm, but like the heartgasms, the teargasms, the like, all of those gasms, and helping people access that pleasure that they hold within themselves that just needs maybe a little help being unlocked.
I love that. Okay. Where can people find you? And is there one or two like your most powerful, like, oh my God, you have to come and play with me in these spaces?
Oh, so many. Come play with me. I can be found on my website, which is andmorepresents.com, and you can find me on social media, which is my name, Kimi Inch, but also I have And More Presents on Instagram and Facebook and all of that. But ultimately, we have a lot of different experiences for people to get a sense of what they're ready for. Our signature event is our 4-day event called Something More, and it's a beautiful immersive experience where people can really step into what they desire and learn the tools that help them create the sex life and the life of their dreams. So that's what our Something More looks like. And for those that maybe need a little bit of a slower introduction into this world, we have online courses that you can go at your own pace, or you can join us for our intro level 1-day experience called Taste of More, which is about really just dipping the toe in the shallow end of the pool of your erotic life and see what's there to feel safe that you can continue to embark on this journey and have the tools to do so.
And what about your dark femme experience?
Oh my gosh. Can we talk about it?
Yes.
So it's called Sacred Seduction, Awakening the Dark Feminine. And it's a beautiful course that's going to be made for women to dive into their dark feminine energy and to have access to the potency of their shadows, of their sexuality, of their power, and to be able to navigate that through their relationships and their careers so that they can have an expansive, fulfilling life that feels so good for them.
Yeah. And also there's gonna be an online version, and then some people are gonna be able to come in person for a special VIP experience.
That's right. We'll be doing the 8 weeks online. Me and Taylor Simpson will be leading that. We'll have some guest experts joining us, talking about everything from surrender to erotic play to dancing in the feminine energy to communication, all kinds of things. And then also for those who are ready to take it to the next level, there will be an invitation for those to join us in person in Austin so that you can actually play with these items and these learning experiences with your sisters and to really lock it into your body. And it's so fun, it's so sexy, and it's really, really expansive.
I love it. I love it. Oh my God. So yes, let us know your questions. Find each other on social media. We absolutely love this. Just come play with us, basically.
Come play. We're ready for you.
Thank you so much for listening to this Wildly Satisfied production. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we would love it if you would share it with someone that you love, leave a review, or come tag us on social media at Wildly Satisfied.